Sam's actually left now. I can see he's gone off camera. I don't know if that's because... Oh, he's just getting water. That's fine. He needs a drink in case he passes out from my negative Disney views.
It's not water.
This is the Theme Park Loopy podcast.
Hey, and welcome to the Theme Park Loopy podcast. And today it is another episode of Going to Orlando. That's right, our first episode of Going to Orlando in 2025. And potentially, I don't think we actually did one in 2024. So we're going to be talking about various topics related to Orlando. And also, Brett is in the house. He's going to be telling us all about his trip, the highs, the lows, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hopefully, mainly good and not so ugly. But I don't know, because we've not had a chance to hear too much about it. So you'll be hearing it all live as we're hearing it as well. We've also got in the studio, we've got Dan and we've got Sam. So first, I'll introduce Dan. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm surviving the snow. We've had a bit of a mad sort of snow day today where we've got 30 centimetres outside our front door. I'm assuming that was most of Yorkshire. So yeah.
Yeah, and I've been out snubbling show. I've been out shoveling snow today. That's a Yorkshireism for you, Sam. Snubbling snow, shoveling. I don't know, whatever. Sam, how are you doing?
Shoveling snow, noveling snow. I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well, thank you, Ryan. I'll tell you, one problem I don't have here is snow, although I do miss it. We haven't had anything. I mean, I think the coldest it's got is 21 degrees, which, I mean, I'm wearing a jumper as I'm saying this because it's cold outside, but it's 21 degrees. So I think when I come back to the UK this year, I'm going to be in for a bit of a shock. But I'm very well, and I hope you're well too. And Brett, it's lovely to have you back on the show.
Yeah, Brett, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's been it's been a while, right? I think Halloween and then November I was away quite a bit of the time, and then obviously December Christmas happens, so everyone's busy, and it's nice to be back, and hopefully I can make a lot more now. But yeah, it's really good. There's actually not that much snow here though. We've got like a couple inches of snow, if that.
Yeah, I heard. So you're down in Wales. I heard. So my wife's mum is down in Wales. I had to think about that for a second. She's down in Wales, and she said they had a flurry of snow and then it just kind of disappeared. So I think that's what's been going on in Wales, unfortunately. Before we kick off, though, Brett, what's the exciting news in the My Haunted world? Because there's been some exciting news recently.
Oh yeah, actually, probably too much to even really talk about. The biggest news is that the show will be removing from YouTube. So the My Haunted project that's been on YouTube for the last 3 years, running in Chester and a place over in America as well, that's now moving to Amazon Prime, which is really cool. So we start filming as of probably next week. Our first production meetings are tomorrow, which is really exciting. On top of that, we've got a brand new venue coming in Pendle Hill, which is where the 1612 very famous witch trials happened. But it's the only venue you can actually go to in all of Pendle Hill, which is really cool. So yeah, some exciting stuff coming up with that. It's all happened while I was away in Orlando.
That's good. And I'm not too far from Pendle Hill, so that could be interesting.
Can I just quickly say, Formula Rosa is back up and running. Some news out here from the Middle East. It went back up just before Christmas or just in the new year, I think. And I rode it like last week, so in its first kind of operating week, and they've replaced the cables, so it's no longer an LSM launch. It's a cable. Well, it wasn't an LSM launch before. Sorry, it's a cable. So they replaced the old cable with the new cable, and I've got to say, it's absolutely fantastic. I hadn't been on it for the best part of a year because it's been down, but it really packs a punch. And I went back on it after work on Thursday, and it was unbelievable. Like, it literally whammed you. And it was a night ride as well in the pitch black. And they put around the track, they put these like strobing lights. So as you're flying around over 100 miles an hour with a G-forced face, you're like, it's it basically strobes you at the same time. So not only are you getting whipped by the G-force, but you're getting strobed in your face. So you don't know if you're going, being blinded by the lights or your face is going through a new kind of plastic surgery. But it's very exciting, nevertheless.
How
That's
long was it
pretty
down
exciting.
for?
I think it was down for the best part of like 10 months.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was down for a long time, but it's back up now, baby.
Yeah, it's been down a while. Thanks for that, Sam. That's exciting news. What I was going to say, I just remembered, was by the way, Brett, don't listen to our last episode because we kind of slagged off Amazon a little bit. So we'll they're weird Christmas films that they've got that are all the same, and I think Dan was inspired to look at some Christmassy films that involve princes and princesses that are all in Scotland apparently. So we won't say any more about Amazon.
I'm
seeing
going
as
to have to
you're
check
on
this
there.
out now, right?
Yeah, you might have to check it out. Yeah, definitely go and check it out. But we love Amazon. Please don't sue us. And if you want to give us free stuff, then go for it.
I think we need an Amazon Prime show, frankly.
Yeah, I think we do. We need an Amazon Prime show. I don't know what it'd be, but we could think of something. I think a long time ago.
I'll see what I can do. I'll give Jeff a call.
Yeah, well, a long time ago, I think we had a conversation about having a show called Spook House, where we would put random Z-list celebrities into spooky situations. So you never know, we could bring back Spook House maybe as a kind of spin-off. Okay, so we're going to talk mainly about Orlando today. We've got a few topics that we want to get through, and then obviously we're going to get to Brett's trip as well. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is because, Brett, you missed our last conversation where we talked about Alton Towers and a bit about Universal UK and how Alton Towers is kind of acting at the moment, things that are happening we're not really sure about because they've kind of closed some rides, have opened up a kind of replica of Ripsaw, and we're not really sure where the park is going. So a bit of a question really is that do we think that UK theme parks, including Alton Towers, are worried about potentially Universal UK or already reacting to Universal UK, considering that it's not been announced yet, but I mean, we're kind of feeling like it is going to happen. What's your opinion on this?
Oh, there's got to be people in boardrooms right now, isn't there? Thinking about all the things that could happen if they were to announce it. It's a completely different ballgame. A Universal Park and a Merlin Park they're just two different things. Whether that means they'll attract different audiences, I don't know. Whether the Universal price, the pricing of Universal being probably a lot more expensive than the likes of going to Alton Towers for the day, whether that will maybe change the way people see theme parks in the UK. Even worse still, will Merlin then go, oh, Universal can charge £150 a ticket? Huh, okay. I'm worried that might happen. All I think that is going to come out of it is good things in the long run. I think it means that the likes of Merlin Parks will have to. They don't have a choice but to compete. And I think that's kind of a really good thing. I am a bit worried about Alton Towers with being so far away. I think Thorpe Park people maybe would do too if they were travelling. Like theme park fans who are coming to a Universal Park likely would go to Chessington and Legoland and things like that because they all are in a similar-ish area. Alton Towers may get a little bit neglected by that market, which I'm worried about. And Alton Towers have a nostalgia issue. So all of these new rides that they're introducing, not that I would ever say no to a new Nemesis because thank God they kept it. But we're realizing now that, they made a big thing about updating Hex, which all they did was put disco lights in it. I don't know if anyone's been on it yet. It literally just looks like there's disco lights in it. It's great, but it's very colourful. Obviously, Nemesis Reborn, which is incredible. So happy with that. I think it's amazing. Oh, they're going to redo Ripsaw now. Okay, that's great. So what happens when Oblivion's too old? Do they do Oblivion the Revenge? And they just do Oblivion again, but they paint it orange this time.
Oblivion going deeper.
Oh, hmm. Hmm.
Oblivion.
No.
Oblivion. Here's a pitch. Oblivion. The bigger hole.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this is the thing though, is where do they stop? Eventually they are, unfortunately, for us fans, going to have to replace these rides with something new, which then brings in a new audience that would go to these Universal parks and other places. So there's obviously going to be a new market coming in terms of customers to the UK, and Merlin has to respond to that in the correct way. I think they are very well with the Minecraft concept in like Chessington and stuff like that, but I don't think the people who are wanting Minecraft are also going to Universal.
Just on a slightly related note, I think Oblivion's particularly it's a weird one because it was almost like a beta for everything that came after it, like Oblivion Black Hole in Gardaland, built on that theme, made it amazing. There's other vertical drop roller coasters which are much better now. There's no real way they can retheme that and make it I don't know, because like Nemesis is such an amazing roller coaster. It just needed a bit of a clean up and make sure it rode nicely, make sure the cosmetic was all really new and shiny, and it was good to go again. That's not really the case with Oblivion, and it doesn't take up much space either. So it'd be interesting to know what they do eventually decide to do with it. But I think it's going to be a bit of a sticking point.
I think they should do a Willy Wonka overlay of the Smiler. I think that'd be pretty good. So when it's at the end of its life, do a Willy Wonka. I don't know what would be involved in that ride, but it could be fun. I used to enjoy the Willy Wonka ride that they used to have at Alton Towers. It was a pretty good ride. It was a good boat ride, at least the boat ride, and then you got to the elevator, and that was quite interesting. But I used to enjoy that, so I think we need
I was
more of
also a Willy Wonka fan. I really was. Like, I really enjoyed that dark ride. I thought it was so interesting. One of the coolest things is that it was like from memory, it was like 3 separate sections. So it was like the queue line, which had all the artwork and everything. I remember that being pretty beautiful, being like obsessing that as a kid. And then the boat ride, and then, yeah, the elevator ride. So it was like a whole experience going through it. It was great. But I think X Sector in general might well see a retheme as a whole area. I mean, I think they'll keep it to X Sector, but I mean, we might well see color schemes and a refresh of the X Sector brand, lack of a better word. I think it might be more in theme with the Smiler, or do they now start saying, okay, well, what are the main storylines of each land? So Forbidden Valley, you've got Phalanx, and X Sector you've got is obviously Ministry of Joy. And do they start then like theming their lands around the kind of main IP of a storyline that's heavily within that land? Does that kind of make sense?
Well, that would be a good way of doing it, wouldn't it? I was thinking of that. The X Sector could be the Ministry of Joy, so there could all be contraptions that are related to creating joy or whatever based on that storyline. And then the Phalanx could be, and I guess so the Ripsaw replacement, I believe. Brett, what's it called? Is it called the Toxinator? I feel like I've not got the name right.
Toxicator. Oh, is it? Toxicator. I want to say. I may be wrong on that. I haven't looked at the name in ages, but yeah, that's the name everyone is going for.
I've really not paid a massive amount of attention, but I guess if you think about it, that's almost like getting a detox after being in contact with Nemesis, basically. But then how does Galactica fit into that? So I think, if anything, Galactica surely is due some sort of retheme again. And originally, the idea between Air, I believe, was Nemesis was meant to be this intense happening, and then Air was meant to be the kind of the calm after the storm. I think that was how they sold it. I don't know if people knew that, but that was the idea behind Air and why they did it the way that they did. I don't know if that
the original
kind of connected.
The original concepts of it were actually that you were flying over the land that that was ruined by Nemesis in the original concept. And this is a part of the reasons where it all disappeared, because it was being built in 2001, which some of our viewers may not have been born then. But in 2001, obviously, we had 9/11, and in the concept art was the Statue of Liberty and stuff like that, which had been destroyed by Nemesis or by airstrikes or whatever it was. So that completely got shelved. I mean, I don't think it would have ever made it to that point, even regardless of 9/11, but because the budget basically paid for zero theming. But yeah, that was the sort of original concept with it. They even looked at steampunk themes for it, which were quite interesting. I have heard on the grapevine that there will be a Phalanx retheme of Air shortly.
I think there needs to be, because if they're taking on this color scheme across Forbidden Valley, it all looks so good. And certainly the Nemi section, then with the Toxinator with Subterra coming back as well, that one will fit within the Phalanx Nemi theme, right? And then at the moment, you've just got Galactica now sticking out like a sore thumb. You know, it just looks really random. So I think at the very least, it needs a fresh coat of paint to at least fit within. They can literally plonk a new name on the door on the door and paint it a different shade of black, yellow, whatever they're doing, green, whatever the vibe is. But yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, let's move on to talking about Orlando, because that's the point of the episode. So, Rip Ride Rockit is closing in September, early September, I believe. If you don't know, Rip Ride Rockit is a roller coaster at Universal Studios, at Universal Orlando Resort. I forget the manufacturer, but it's the X-Cars seat that we used to see at Drayton Manor when they had G-Force. Much better ride than G-Force, much more comfortable than G-Force. I used to be a big fan of Rip Ride Rockit. So I last rode Rip Ride Rockit less than 18 months ago, and I can tell you, it's a shadow of its former self. Really, really rattly, pretty rough. Still good, for the sound and the experience, etc., etc. It seems to break down quite a lot on the vertical lift hill now. So they've made the decision that it's going to close. Now, there's some rumours now about what's going to come next. They've already put permits in. It looks like there's going to be a show building, potentially maybe even 2 buildings, I think. At least 1 show building by the looks of it. Now, looking at the plans, it looks like, if you know the layout to Universal Studios over at Orlando, part of what they've marked out that's going to be part of the attraction is actually the Ghostbusters Firehouse. So one of the things that have been talked about is it going to be a Ghostbusters ride? Now, before the show, I was talking about how now that we're going to have Epic Universe, and Epic Universe is going to be this fantasy worlds of fantasy kind of thing. I think that Universal Studios is now thinking, let's go back to riding the movies. I think that's where they're going. So I think it's fair to say, based on what we've seen so far, that we're going to be looking at a kind of ride in the movies type attraction. So the first option is it going to be Ghostbusters? Now, you could say that could make sense based on that it looks like they're keeping the area where the firehouse is, but they were never that careful with the Ghostbusters IP anyway, because when they built Rip Ride Rockit, they literally put a hole through it and put Rip Ride Rockit through the firehouse. So it's not like, they lovingly look after the Ghostbusters, and they've not even got the logo there anymore, so you wouldn't even know it was the Ghostbusters Firehouse. Now, the other rumour is that potentially it could be a Fast and Furious ride, which I think is probably the most likely, because that's what we're getting over in California. Don't know why we need another Fast and the Furious ride, to be honest. It was always broken when I was there. And also, I did actually get to go in the queue line, because that's where the Chucky experience was during Halloween Horror Nights. So I did get to see the queue line, and they had, what was quite good is they actually had the video in the queue line and actually had Chucky in the video. So he was kind of like attacking the characters and stuff. So that was quite interesting, which I thought was an interesting spin on it. Never got to go on the ride though. And then also these other options potentially. Could we see things like Back to the Future? I've pitched this idea to multiple people at Universal when I was over there, because anyone who would listen, I kept saying, come on, let's have a Back to the Future launch coaster. It makes so much sense. In a show building, let's have fire either side, let's see the car setting off, it'd be fantastic. I think that's a no-brainer, but Universal probably have other ideas. So, do we think it's the right thing to do to close Rip Ride Rockit, and what do we think could be coming next?
So, from my point of view, completely agree that it's deteriorated with age. It's also, as you said, Ryan, it seems to be offline quite a lot. And I remember being really annoyed when it started to like slightly drizzle, and they just took it offline immediately. Like, it can't handle any weather at all. So whatever happened, like, it would either need heavy maintenance or like a full refurb. So I guess, weighing up their options, they probably thought, well, we might as well make better use of the space. But from my point of view, it's a shame because it's such a unique roller coaster with loads of weird things you don't really get like elsewhere. Like, it doesn't stop. You've got to sort of kind of get on it and get ready and put your harness down. The seat itself is weird because it's got the speakers and it's quite sort of far back, and you've got that harness to get around you, and it's all weird. Like, you don't get those harnesses anywhere else. You can get a video of yourself on the ride, which is all part of the experience. You can pay for that afterwards. You can choose your music. It does that. Obviously, it lifts up vertically from the get-go, so your first experience with it is sort of going right on your back, and sort of feeling like, it's a good job you're strapped in tightly, because you feel like you might just fall backwards, which is, again, it's a weird experience but really good fun. And there's just loads about it. Like, it doesn't go upside down on that first loop. It sort of twizzles you around, so that you're always the right way up. And then afterwards, you get a really good ride around quite a good part of the park. Like, you can see lots of different things on route. So I'll be sad to see it go. And at night, it looks amazing. Like, lit up, it just looks, if you're there for Halloween Horror Nights, it just looks like this amazing central point. You can always find your friends around, and just you queue under the lights, and you can get some amazing photos. So I'll really miss it. I think it was a good ride, needed work. I'll be sad to see it go.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a weird camp about this, because every time I've queued up for that ride, it is broken down, and it's usually right as I'm at the air gates. I'll be at the air gates or just before, and I've listened to that Osta, whatever it is they say. I'm sure it's like Osta, but it's over and over and over again. And you queue up, yeah, Osta, and everyone's going, what does Osta even mean? I don't know. And then you hear all the rumors. Oh, it's Spanish. I don't actually know if it is Spanish, but we need to fact check that. But anyway, you're there, you're at the air gates, and then suddenly, I actually think it might be a made up word. Anyway, it then suddenly breaks down when you're at the air gates, right? That is always historically my relationship when it comes to Rip Ride Rockit. However, I completely agree with you, Dan. I think it was unique. I think it was interesting. I love that they had all the secret menus that you could find online to get your wonderful music that you wanted. And, you'd always think, oh, I'm going to choose something really different for this ride. And then you always choose the same one. For me, it was Limp Bizkit Rolling, right? No matter how many times I go back on that, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to do Madonna this time. No, I'm not. I'm going to do Rolling, because what if Madonna is different to Rolling? Kind of like going to McDonald's. Sometimes you want to try the new menu, but you never do, because you still get your chicken burger, your Malaysian curry. So yeah. So anyway, I think it's a great ride, but it has had its time. And also, I think something else could be put in there to do that is more prominent, or a classic IP. I love this Back to the Future idea, Ryan. I think that's a great idea. And I agree with you. I think Universal Studios will be getting back to the old ways of writing the movies, 100%.
It's a weird one, I think, Rip Ride Rockit. I obviously have only written it a few times, like a couple months ago, and I enjoyed it. It was fine. It dies after the first half, pretty much. You hit the first mid-course brake run, and you kind of forget the rest of the ride happened after that, really. The uninverted loop is really good. I thought it was really cool. The first drop on the lift hill's great. I know you stumbled on the thingy earlier. Sam actually put it in our chat. I don't know if you spotted it. The manufacturer is Mara Rides. I think it used to be Mara Cerner, which was like SO HN or something along those lines with apostrophe over the O. And it was built back when the likes of G-Force at Drayton Manor was built. Back when this X car concept was the roller coaster to build, and it was this whole thing. I don't know if you guys remember this, if you were that kind of into following all these little details like I was. But they did this massive deal at, like, I don't know if it was at IAPA or something, where they would get the car in a sort of rotating drum, and you could sit in it, and it meant that you didn't fall out if you were hanging upside down by a lap bar, even though there's been multiple rides that have done that anyway. But it was to try and improve comfort. It was this whole big marketing ploy around these rides, and then they built a couple of them, and they were like, okay, they weren't any really better than any other manufacturer could have built. They obviously had the unique elements, and that's kind of what they were going for. So I think they kind of panic bought this go-to brand new roller coaster, and now they've gone, we've now just built Velocicoaster, which is far, far superior now. They're looking at this new Fast and Furious ride, which I think is also Intamin built, but I think it's got spinning car-like trains to it, which, again, looks great. I think that would be great. I am not a fan of Fast and Furious at all. The Fast and Furious Supercharged ride that's there, we went on it simply because I wanted to see how bad it actually was. And it was worse than I thought. And I knew it was awful. So that was interesting. It would have been cool to see Chucky in the queue line, though. That'd have been interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I wasn't expecting it at all, but then Chucky just kept popping up every now and then in the video. It's a shame because I think actually that was the best part of the Chucky experience at Halloween Horror Nights, actually, because it was a bit weird, actually, because it kind of broken into two. But yeah. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, Rip Ride Rockit. I'm hoping I might get a ride on it when I get there later this year, but we'll see. If not, then I'll just harass people at Universal to find out what's coming next, and I'm sure they'll tell me. But yeah, we'll see. Okay, so again, keeping to Universal Studios, the contract for The Simpsons runs out in 2028, which isn't too far away. Allegedly, Disney have been doing a survey and have been asking their guests whether The Simpsons should come to Disney World or not, presumably. Now, thinking about this, where could The Simpsons potentially fit into Disney World? Well, Hollywood Studios would probably be the most obvious option. Knowing Disney, they'll probably take down the Mexico Pavilion and put it in the middle of there, and we'll have like Chucky Land as a world showcase venue or something. I can definitely see that happening. Not Chucky Land. What am I on about? What's the clown called? What's the clown? Krusty. Yeah, Krusty Land. Yeah. So we'll have Krusty Land, which will be amongst the pavilions in World Showcase. Like, you just know that's going to happen, don't you? So, what do we think about The Simpsons coming to Disney World? Obviously, Universal, rumours have been going around for ages that it's going to be going. We don't know what's going to come next. Obviously, one thing to note is that used to be where Back to the Future was. Could Back to the Future come back? King Kong did come back in some way, in maybe a not as good a way when we had Confrontation. However, it did come back, so could Back to the Future come back? Could be interesting to go back in its old space, even if it doesn't go in the same building. So what do we think about The Simpsons coming to Disney World? Could this be a good move, or is this a move too far, potentially?
I reckon that they shouldn't do it. I think there are better franchises to work with. The Simpsons, when I was growing up, was amazing. It was the best thing on TV and remains some of the best comedy on a cartoon that's ever been made. I still quote The Simpsons from like seasons 3 through 9. it's so quotable. There's so many like little one-liners that still make me laugh. But it's been a bad parody of itself for 15 years. I'm fed up with The Simpsons. I want easy access to it on, Disney Plus if I want to catch up on some of the good old episodes that they used to make. I don't want a reminder that it still exists and that it's still being made, because it's depressing.
Yeah, completely agree. I think that's going to be the theme today, Dan. I'm also in so much agreement with you. I really think that like Simpsons has has had its day, to be honest, and the Universal attraction is always one that I miss. I never purposefully choose to go on it because actually the motion sickness really gets to me. I'm not necessarily one that's prone to motion sickness that much, but for some reason on The Simpsons, it will send me for several hours afterwards. I don't know why. It's awful. And so because of that, and I know I'm not alone in feeling that motion sickness from that ride. So because of that, I've now got this association with The Simpsons having this ride, which is, to today's standards, fairly average as a motion simulator, and it creates this sense of sickness. So, personally, I do have a bit of a repulsion to the Simpsons area because of that. But also, I think like if Disney try to do something with The Simpsons, I feel like all it's going to be doing is it's going to be a direct comparison is going to be made to the Universal ride, and it's not their own thing standalone. It's not like they've taken Family Guy, for example, and made an entire themed world or attraction of something that hasn't been done before. But if they're just going to be rebranding and redoing another IP in the parks, which by all means, I understand it's just a survey, so nothing is being guaranteed. It just feels like it will just be constantly compared to the two. And it's like, that's been in existence. It's been done. And yes, sure, it was popular when it first came out, but it's not. From a lot of the enthusiasts that I speak to, it seems to sit around about the same place with a lot of people's lists. I don't know anyone that goes to Universal out of my friendship group, and anyway, my enthusiast friendship group, that says, yeah, that I'm going to Universal Studios for the Simpsons ride. So I just feel like Disney should, if they're going to bring it into the parks, maybe memorialize it with some immersive experience, maybe some sort of like set recreation, museum, something like that, something where it's archived and memorialized. Fine, great, because it was a big part of television history. But I think going down the route of creating a land and a world and a ride is just probably not the best move. So I agree with you, Dan, wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I don't think they should do it. Just don't do it. I am one of those people who didn't go on the Simpsons ride in Universal Studios. And I don't even remember making that decision to not go on it. I just walked past it. Like I didn't go there going, can't be bothered, the queue's too long. I just walked to ET and that was kind of it. I don't remember even considering walking through the door. I've never been a massive fan of Simpsons anyway. Maybe that has something to do with it. I knew it was a motion simulator, so it wasn't going to be anything like that significant that I was going to miss out on. Don't do it, Disney. Just don't. What I think should happen, I think that Universal should update what they already have, and I think that they should try, even though we know that's not the case, to keep the theme park rights. I think that's how it should work.
I do actually want to say one really quick thing in the Simpsons attraction defense. One thing that I loved when I did that attraction for the first time, and it was the first time I'd really seen it being done, to me at least, was it was one of the only rides at the time where when the air gates was a separate booth or building. So I love this when rides do this, but I love it when a ride station is sectioned off so you can't see the station before you enter the ride vehicle. I love that. I think there's this big sense of anticipation and whatever. But what made Simpsons stand out to me was that you almost had your own personal, like private area to go in and board your own ride vehicle. So it felt really exclusive, like and really personalized and intimate. And I really liked that. The only other...
It were better when there were DeLoreans, though, wasn't it?
It's true.
When you have to get in your own
I guess.
DeLorean rather than whatever that is. I can't remember. It's some sort of fairground ride thing.
Yes.
I can't even remember. We didn't go on it last time, but we did go on it first time we went, and that was enough.
I went
I've
on it
never
last time I
been-
went, and I apologised to my son for making him go on it because we got off and we were both a bit dizzy. And I was like, I'm sorry, Martin. I knew that wasn't the best one, but I just thought you might like it. And yeah, we just moved on quite rapidly. It's just not a good experience. I don't like. I don't know. Like I do like the rest of the park. I quite the little Simpsons themed areas, like the donut place next door and the chicken place. I think that's quite cool. I quite like the little children's spinny ride with the aliens. I enjoy the land. I just don't enjoy that specific ride.
Okay, so let's move on and let's find all about the good, the bad, and the ugly from Brett's trip to Orlando. But first, make sure you stick around for the end of show club. We have got a few questions to get through towards the end of the show. So make sure you are part of the end of show club, of course. So I'm going to pass over to Brett because I'm really excited. I want to find out how your trip went. And also, did you take on board any of the advice that we gave you, or did we give you really bad advice? How did all that kind of pan out?
Yeah, I think I spent so much time trying to take on all the advice from so many people, from you guys, from the people we were going with who had been multiple times before, and then ended up using very little of it. Not because it was bad advice, but because that place is so overwhelming. And when you get there, you either have two choices: to either just go with the flow or plan to the point that you may not actually enjoy yourself. So I decided to go with I had an itinerary of all the theme parks we were going to on one day. It was kind of interrupted by 3 days up in Pennsylvania. We flew up so I could go and see our works venue up in Pennsylvania as well for a few days and spend some time up there. So I lost sort of 3 days worth of going to parks. However, what I found the most interesting was we went to Universal first day, Islands of Adventure. It was really fairly quiet. We got on everything, including the Popeyes Rapids ride, which I thought I was going to get a bit wet on.
Oh,
I'm still wet. I'm still wet. It's 3 months later.
Honestly, I don't know another water ride out there in the world that really tries to just obliterate you in water. Like, it is just the wettest thing you can ever find on planet Earth.
We decided, we were like, it's warm enough that it's fine if we get a bit wet. That's okay. And then as we were sort of getting on, I saw people coming off like as if they've just gone swimming in their clothes. It wasn't even like, oh, they're really wet. These people were drenched from head to toe. There was no it was so that was interesting. I don't really do. I think I actually, this is probably too much information, but I actually had to go to one of the restrooms and just take my pants off because they were too wet. That is just what I had to do. I couldn't keep walking in my wet pants.
Nice. And were the toilets as good as when you went to Europa Park? That's what we all want to know.
Yeah, so this is one thing I really wanted to bring up because people were coming to me all the time. There's a guy I work with who I don't know if he's going to see this. Will he see this? He considers himself a bit of a Disney sort of expert when it goes. He's been a million times, so yeah, he knows his stuff about it. But I think we enjoy different versions of what we enjoy about theme parks. So a lot of the advice I took off him, I ended up not taking at all. And one of the things he said was, "You've never seen toilets like it, honestly, Brett. You think they were good in Europa Park? You've seen nothing." So I don't know what I imagined, but no, they were not as good as Europa Park. In fact, going to Disney parks, and I think this is the biggest thing that I took away was I didn't expect to say that I didn't really enjoy the Disney parks that much.
Oh, controversial. But
I know, like Sam's face right now, he looks like he's going to hang up.
but I'm going to pin you down slightly on toilets though, because before you went, we talked to you about the fact that it's not a private situation when you go to the toilet in America for some reason. What did you think
No,
about
you have
that?
to sit on the person's lap next to you. That's interesting. Like my girlfriend especially is very like private when it comes to going to the bathroom. So it was like in a theme park that was basically impossible. This is ridiculous. Not only is there a 3-foot gap at the bottom of every door, there's a 2-inch gap at the side of every door. It's different. It's different. But that was, I tell you what was good were the urinals had very, very big walls between them all. So it was if like the urinals cared so much about privacy, but if you were sitting on a toilet, nope.
I can't stand the gap. It's the gap that really sends shivers down my spine. And I'm a private pooper, everyone. I'm a real private pooper. So I do not like, even if I'm in a public bathroom, I will play music from my phone. Private pooper. Corporal pooper. I will play music from my phone just to make sure that no one can hear any noises that one might hear. So the gap is just terrifying to me. And I even hate walking.
I wonder how many listeners now have heard Sam playing music in a public toilet and now they know who it was.
And it's usually just because I don't have any offline music. It's usually just like my crappy ringtone or whatever, just playing on repeat, anything that I can find. Just to
and the thing is, right? I don't. Is it that in America they don't know because they don't have the metric system? Can they not measure the doors properly, or is it that they want to watch people on the toilet, or what's the reason for it?
Is it not a security thing? Like I assumed it was like, we want to make sure there's no one left in the toilet, like trying to smuggle themselves in after hours or something.
Oh no, this is everywhere. This is in like every public toilet in America. This isn't just a theme park thing. So
absolutely, I was going to say,
yeah,
it's not. This is not an exclusive Disney thing. This is even at the bloody airport. The minute you land, they shudder. The gap.
All right. Well, let's move on. Let's move on from toilets. Carry on, Brett.
So going back to what I've just said that shocked Sam so much, I'm surprised he's still talking to us. Is that the one park I wanted to go to. This was down from I would have eliminated all parks to go to just this one, Magic Kingdom. I don't know if it's because I know so much about these things already was the reason I didn't enjoy it as much. But I think mainly it was the 80,000 other people was the reason I didn't enjoy it that much. And we went on a quiet day. And I think that's, I don't know if the Sam's actually left now. I can see he's gone off camera. I don't know if that's because, he's just getting water. That's fine. He needs a drink in case he passes out from my negative Disney views.
It's not water. It's pure methanol.
You know, I needed to... My my throat was drying up in anger as you were talking, so I just had to...
That's fair. The thing is it's not as if, for instance, I didn't show you guys the fact that I've just 3D printed the partner statue, or I have a Disney castle sat over there. It hasn't stopped my love for the idea of the parks, but they were just so busy. On the quiet days, they were so busy that it just became so difficult to actually really enjoy this sort of idealistic Disney experience that you're sold through adverts or what you kind of see. And I think a big one, and we talked about this before we went on air, is these YouTube channels like Disney Food Blog or a couple others that show this incredible, all these little tiny details of Disney that you either don't have the time to see, you can't see them because you can't physically get to it. There's too many people with prams there. And then the other one is that all of this stuff costs hundreds and hundreds of dollars to do it anyway. Like the likes of Disney Food Blog, as much as I still watch their videos and I think they're great, they never once really mention money in the grand scheme of things. They'll say that, oh, this cookie costs $7.99. That's okay, that's fine. They don't tell you that to get that cookie, it costs you $200 to get into the park after hours at a Christmas event. They didn't tell you that bit. And things like that I thought were it kind of just took away from the whole idealistic view that you could have of a Disney park. Now, one thing that we ended up doing was we went to all the parks, obviously. I thought Magic Kingdom was great in terms of actually physically being there. But I got to the point where the queues were so busy that I just didn't ride some things. I think it took us 3 visits to get on Tron because I've realised that it was 40 minutes, quick, get on it. Because it was 200 every other day before that. And the shows, Happily Ever After is incredible. Like, we went back to watch that another 2 times. Epcot, moving on to Epcot, I don't understand Epcot. I don't get it. It's a lot. Everyone is shaking my head. I don't get Epcot.
This is pure outrageous. I don't know what to do with you, Brett.
Why do you enjoy Epcot so much, Dan?
Because you get to walk around loads of different countries and you get to have wine and booze from each one and snacks. If you're an adult and you like adulting and you like food or drink with an occasional ride, what more could you want? It's amazing.
Was the Food and Wine Festival on when you were there, Brett? Was Food and Wine on, or was it not on?
Yeah, I think it was actually.
Well, the thing is, right, why I like Epcot. Well, I used to like Epcot more because the Future World area. I liked the kind of 70s retroness of it. Now they're making it a bit smarter than what it was. But basically, in essence, what Epcot to me is an all year round world fair. That's basically what it is. When they used to build pavilions of different countries and you'd find out. Because what's quite interesting about Epcot is that every country that has a pavilion, people from that country come over and work in that pavilion. So it's a really good way of actually genuinely interacting with people from different countries if you wanted to do that. I think that little detail is something that makes it. However, I worry about the way Disney is going, that I think one day that'll be something that they don't think is a good idea anymore. But I think if they didn't have the people from different countries in World Showcase, I don't think it'd be the same as it is now. So I do worry about that. But I like Epcot. I think it's quite a bit more of a relaxed day. But I do think you kind of have to take your time, maybe forget that you're in a theme park, but at the same time, also potentially home to one of the best roller coasters in Florida, Guardians of the Galaxy. Did you get on Guardians of the Galaxy and what did you think of it?
Never got in a virtual queue to get on it.
Oh.
In all 2 weeks. Never managed to get on it. Yeah. But that was the issue with the Disney parks. It was just insane. And we were in a very, very quiet period of time. And it was just crazy with people.
So I wanna ask you this question then, Brett, because obviously, Magic Kingdom, you said, was extremely busy, and I totally get that. It can get rife in there where you just can't move. I don't agree with you on Epcot. I think it's a lovely, relaxing day and a bit of a breather. And I personally have a love affair of walking around Epcot World Showcase towards the end of the day and then slowly getting a bit tipsy, finding some food, and then watching the fireworks to finish off your night. I think is such a beautiful time. However, what I did want to ask you is, would you then, based on the facts, that you've said that the crowds got too busy to the point where you couldn't get on what you wanted, and to the point where you didn't enjoy your day. So would you be in favor, or would you like to see Disney start capping their numbers in terms of their guest gate figure to maximize your day? And if they did start doing that, even if you had to sacrifice going to a different park for that day, or you couldn't get into that park for that day because of the cappage, but those people that were in the park were having a lesser day of crowds, would you be in favor for that? Or what would be your suggestion?
That's a really good question. I think Magic Kingdom especially. The rest of the parks I think were manageable. Magic Kingdom just became it felt like Robot Wars for buggies. It is what it was just awful. My ankles hurt from all the wheels. Like it was just crazy. And then obviously you have Happily Ever After, which is the most incredible thing. And going back to Epcot, actually, Epcot's Luminous, A Symphony of Us, their final show in the center of the showcase, is better than Happily Ever After. I absolutely think that was incredible, emotional. I cried every time. I think we saw it twice from two different points in Epcot. So we ended up going to, rather than going to parks, we spent a couple days just spending time in Orlando, going shopping and going for lunch and stuff. We spent one afternoon just going to SeaWorld because we had dining passes, so we just ate food for a bit. But even then, we still went back to Epcot to watch the show at the end of the night because it was so incredible. So that's the one thing that Disney does that no one can. There was just no way. We saw Universal's show, which I think is called Cinesation, maybe. It's a weird name, but yeah.
Cinesation, yeah, something like that.
Which was pretty good, but it wasn't what I saw at Epcot. It wasn't what I saw at Magic Kingdom. It wasn't even Fantasmic in terms of the shows. So in that sort of aspect of it, and in the grand scheme of what a theme park is, I still absolutely love the Disney parks. I do think that I would have the option of going, oh, look, we can't go that day because we didn't book it 60 days in advance to go, but we can go to Universal that day, or we can go to SeaWorld, so we'll book another day. I would choose to go less and have a better experience each time. I think that's a pretty good idea to potentially cap the ideas. Maybe only on Magic Kingdom. I think the other parks were manageable. That was it got to the point where we couldn't leave after the fireworks in Magic Kingdom. We had to stay in the park for another 2 hours to leave.
Because it is a fair problem. Like a lot of the times when I've ever been in Orlando, there are days when you consider, is it worth the stress and the aggro because of the crowds going into Magic Kingdom, because you can almost imagine that it's just going to be so busy, and it does become a bit of a problem. So I just wanted to address that a bit to see what your thoughts were, because I think it's a really valid point that you've made about Magic Kingdom and the overall enjoyment with the crowd levels.
I was just going to quickly say, so when we go, we always look at this like a calendar app that will show you which are the the peak flow days. Like obviously any weekend day is not a Magic Kingdom day. There are certain days during the week where it's going to be increased traffic. There are certain days where it's going to be lowest traffic. So what we always do is, like, I don't know, Tuesday, like it might be a Magic Kingdom day as long as there's no holidays or anything nearby, and we sort of pick that way. Obviously Magic Kingdom is always going to be a busy one, but it hasn't. I've not encountered the situation which I think you're talking about, where it's completely ruined my time. Sorry, there's something flying past my camera there. Usually it's quite a busy park, but usually it's always been kind of manageable for us. We've sort of navigated around the park. We know which rides you start at and which ones you end at. And maybe it's because I'm not sure if you use those apps. If you did use those apps, it might just be one of those things. I don't know. It might just have been busier than forecast, but it could just be that because we've been a few times. You get into a rhythm, where to go, what to do, and when to do it, and maybe you just you haven't found that ebb and flow yet. I don't know.
Yeah, so this was actually one of the things that we sort of took on board. I didn't realize when sorting out, I'd written a whole timetable of everything I wanted to do, and I was like, oh, we'll do Magic Kingdom on Monday. That'll be quieter. And then I realized that, well, I had to pay an extra $200 to stay in the park to watch the fireworks. Otherwise, they were kicking us out at 6 p.m. So that day, potentially, I have heard, I don't know if this is true, I didn't actually go, that those days are quieter when there's an evening Christmas or Halloween event or something on. But then you only get half the day in the park. So at that point, is it better or worse? It's kind of six and a half a dozen, really. So we ended up going on the Tuesday where the park was open till 11, so we could obviously watch the fireworks. And it got to a point where we watched the fireworks and we were so tired that we just left afterwards. I think, well, actually, we went and got food, sat down until we could physically leave.
Could I ask you a question then, in terms of tiredness? Because one of the things that I think helps the tiredness is, since I've stayed on site at Universal, I found that saved me a lot of time. Do you think that now you've stayed off site on International Drive, do you think in future, would you go back to International Drive, or would you consider staying on site either at Universal or Disney?
I would stay on iDrive. The Ubers were too easy to just use. As long as you have that budget to be able to just know that you can spend on it. But even then, we were still probably spending about the same or less than it would have to rent a car. So we were Ubering absolutely everywhere. I managed to find, there was a couple of times, I don't know if anyone's used Ubers in parks, but here's a really good little tip that we kind of worked out halfway through the trip, was if you open Uber, say you're on the monorail, you're going back to the car parks, you open it to check when the Ubers are, and then you don't immediately book that Uber. If you lock your phone and reopen your phone, there's another $10 on that Uber now. If you lock your phone, there's another $4 on that Uber now. I got to a point where I realized that if you open Uber, you open it where you get picked up, you press that car, you press pay, done. Otherwise, every time you lock your phone and open that app, it goes up. It got to the point where a $14 Uber ended up at $34.
Yeah, we found that as well.
Crazy at some points.
But what we did as well as a bit of a trick, well, not really a trick because it takes time, is that if you really want to, when you leave in Magic Kingdom in particular, walk over to the Contemporary and then get the free bus to Disney Springs, and then get the Uber from Disney Springs. For whatever reason, it was always like $10 to $15 cheaper. It just meant a bit of a walk-in and probably added about 45 minutes on, but if it was already night time anyway and everything had closed anyway. So maybe that's a bit of a tip for me, that use the free transport and maybe go to Disney Springs and get a taxi from there. I don't know why, but we always found it to be slightly cheaper. I think there was one night, because we were very close to Disney Springs closing time that night, that's when the Uber price did go up. So yeah, that's something to think about maybe.
I also wanted to share a tip I had with Epcot in terms of finishing out for the day. Now, obviously, when you've done a whole day at the park, you're exhausted. But if you've gone in later in the afternoon just to do a world showcase, mimsy around and then watch the fireworks, right? And so you're feeling refreshed because you've taken a nap, then I would recommend go to the front of Future World where Spaceship Earth is, and plonk yourself down on the ground and just spend some time watching the Bull, because the Bull runs with the beautiful new soundtrack they made. The Bull will run all night and will have those beautiful patterns. And when I was last there, I was there with some old cast member friends from Cruise Line and from Disney World, and we all met together. It was really surreal. We all met together for the first time in a year and a half, and we moseyed around to the back, beating out all the crowds. All the crowds are rushing for the monorail and stuff. We stayed right at the back, and then we just sat in Future World and just waited for the crowds to die. and we just watched the ball and just hung out there together. And you slowly find yourself getting hypnotized and mesmerized by the light show that's happening continuously. And then it slowly becomes it's intimate and emotional experience because there is no one else around you. And I mean, obviously that's probably a sign you should get out of the park, but there's no one else around you. And it becomes this really nice surreal moment where you do have this moment of, I'm now by myself in the park, because it takes a while for them to clear the areas anyway. But there's usually such a rush. Just hold back and walk through the park at night and appreciate the moment where you get to see Spaceship Earth lit up and looking beautiful, because like you can rush back, but it will take you just as long to sit there, and then you'll get back at the same time because of the crowd. So find that moment, and you just have this 10-15 minutes of surrealism where you're just in the moment, enjoying the beautiful, balmy Florida night sky, looking at the Spaceship Earth light show. That's my number one top tip recommendation, especially if you're with a partner. It's very romantic. I wasn't. I was single, but you know, it's. I can only imagine. I'm joking. I was with my ex, but you know, I can't talk about him. So there we go.
It is interesting to see what people do at a Disney park, and this is, I think, where potentially I entered the Disney park with the wrong intentions. And maybe that part of the reasons I didn't enjoy them as much, which doesn't mean that like I didn't enjoy them. But I realized that all these little things, like you know, this specific cake pop thing you have to get because I saw on TikTok, that's actually 98% of Disney audiences now. I didn't really like people were actually running around looking for this turkey leg that doesn't even exist anymore. And little tiny things like that become your actual Disney day out, which I thought that Disney was about getting on the rides, but instead it actually maybe isn't. Maybe it is about the little tiny things and those little tiny details that allegedly. I mean, has anyone seen the tally thing? The guy who now just goes up in the Christmas parade and tells people they're naughty and walks off. He's now an internet phenomenon. Well, actually, if you watch the video, he's literally some dude dressed sort of as an elf who comes up and goes, "What's your name?" "Sam." "Naughty." And then leaves. And then goes up, "What's your name?" "Dan." "Naughty." And he's now like the most viewed thing in Disney history on TikTok. And I'm like, people are going absolutely mental over this guy. And actually, is there really that much substance to it? I don't know. I think I'm getting excited about the wrong things, clearly.
But no, but I think you're right. You're onto something there, Brett, because I think the magic of Disney is the whole package, right? It's the whole experience. And actually, you said it before, we each, Dan, Ryan, Brett, we each go to Charlie, who's probably going to be listening to this. Love you, Charlie. We all go to these parks for different experiences and different things, right? And I think that's the magic of it, is that what one person may go to the park for will be totally different for someone else. And I just wanted to say that when I went to Japan in September, that is totally bizarre, because in Tokyo Disney Sea, and certainly the Japanese parks, they don't necessarily go for the rides. They go to take photos. They go dressed up and will bring multiple outfits and will go to take photos in these worlds that are believable and real and beautiful. But they're not there for the attractions. They're there for the aesthetics, to take photos. And that's not just with the culture of TikTok and Instagram and everything. That is what they do. And I think that's interesting and just so true, that actually when you're looking at theme parks, you're not just looking at rides and attractions. Yes, they're a wonderful part, but it's the overall package and experience of what that can give to someone is totally different.
I think what you might find, Brett, is maybe the next time you go, because I think the first time I went, I felt very overwhelmed by it, and I was trying to follow things, but I never quite could follow things, and there were quite a few things that I didn't quite enjoy in the end. But what I did find is last time I went, when we tried not to plan as much, and we kind of had a bit of sense about what we could and couldn't do and things like that, that I felt a little bit more relaxed about it. So maybe when you go next time, maybe you'll feel a bit more relaxed, and you'll feel like you've got a bit more time, because you kind of, it's like you kind of think this thing in your head, you kind of think, I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to do that, but then when you get kind of savvy about it, you kind of start to relax about it. So maybe next time you go, maybe that's how you'll feel, hopefully.
Well, I've got a food blog related story. So ages and ages ago, when we were first going, we were obviously doing our food blog research, and they kept banging on about cheeseburger spring rolls and about how you had to get the cheeseburger spring rolls. It's just like eating a burger, but in spring roll form, and it's amazing. You got to have it. And about a month before we went, they said, they've changed the recipe for the cheeseburger spring rolls. They're rubbish now. Don't even bother. It's ridiculous. Anyway, we got there, and I had one, and it was fine. It was just like a spring roll that tasted vaguely like a cheeseburger. And now they're raving about them again, even though presumably they never changed the recipe back. Because I don't know, it's still a novelty food, and people like novelty foods. But like now, when we go, we actually know what we like. Like we found that there's a rum blossom in Animal Kingdom, which is like a bubble tea, but you can have it with rum, and it's amazing. It's really good. And like you find your own little things that you actually do really like, and they're unique, and you can only get them in certain places, and they're actually genuinely worth going to find and hunt down. Like if you're just going to do it because it's a trendy thing, then it'll probably be a bit rubbish. It'll probably be a bit generic.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people do, and I think that's kind of what I was observing, that rather than physically doing it, I was kind of just going to quick service restaurants and going, oh, that thing has mac and cheese in it, I'll eat that. It wasn't really specifically, but all I could see was these people who only went to Disney for the Instagram photo of that Mickey ice cream or something, and they had to do that or else. And I don't think I understood. And like Sam's just said, that I think people just go for different reasons. And I just wasn't aware of these other reasons that people go. I'm stood there going, my God, these rides have got long queues. There's a lot of kids here. When in fact, some people are completely oblivious to that because they're too busy putting on their second costume and getting photos with Donald Duck. Which maybe that was the issue. Maybe I didn't take enough outfit changes.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Right. Okay. Well, look, I think that's been really good, really insightful. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about this as the year goes on. Both me and Dan are going a bit later in the year, so we'll definitely have lots more of Orlando conversations.
Actually, before you finish, sorry to interrupt.
Go on.
There's one thing I have to say about the Disney parks. Galaxy's Edge is the best theme park experience I've ever seen in my entire life, to the point that it fooled me. At one point, I legitimately looked up in the air and thought a spaceship had flown past, because every single speaker in all of Galaxy's Edge is synchronized from the ships to fly over from left to right across the entire park. Most people probably don't even notice that, but I literally looked up at one point. That place is the most immersive thing I've ever seen.
I did that as well, actually. I looked up and went, what? Spaceship gone. Then I realised I was in. But yeah, I think Galaxy's Edge is pretty good. It gets a bit of a bad rap, but I really enjoyed it. I probably wouldn't go to the cantina again. I think that was a bit of a disappointing experience all round, so I won't bother with that next time. But also, there is going to be some new experiences coming to the Millennium Falcon as well. There's going to be a new experience that's going to come to that. So that should be good. Fantastic. Okay, Sam, what time is it?
Sorry, Ryan, is it time?
I think it might be time. Do you think it might be time, Brett?
Oh, I thought you were asking time of what Sam, because Sam's on the other side of the world. I thought you were just asking him like what time it is there, but it might be time.
Oh no, Sam, do you know what time it is?
Dan, do you know what time it is?
Right, sorry. I don't want you guys to sing again. It freaks me out. I don't know what I'm doing.
Ryan,
Wait, are they gonna
hit that
sing?
track. Ryan, drop me a beat.
Dance,
Yeah.
dance,
All
dance,
right, all right.
dance.
We're talking test track and we're here to stay. We're having a good
I'm really
time
sorry, Brett.
every day. We got
How long has this been happening?
on the microphone. So come on,
So when you're
everybody,
away, the
join
cats play.
along. It's the end of show club. Yeah.
I'm not associated with either of these two guys.
It's still going on.
Dun, dun.
There you go.
I'm very confused. What's going on? Where am I?
Exactly. Yeah, it's the end of show club. So, Brett, that's the first time you've experienced the end of show club. That's what we've been getting up to when you've not been here.
So
You look gen-
is I mean, the end of show club, clearly no one's listening now. Like, I mean, that's clear. After that, no one is listening.
We've got
If
at
they-
least
I mean-
5 listeners.
Yeah, we've got at least 5 listeners that have been. But the point of the end of show club is that we go through your questions. So people send us questions, hopefully, and then we go through their questions, and I kind of ask you to answer the questions. So, first question, I've got a question here from somebody called Stephanie. And Stephanie has said, day passes for Epic Universe for UK guests, will they ever be a thing? Well, funnily enough, Stephanie, I did actually ring attraction tickets last week just to moan at them about the Epic Universe ticket situation, because if you don't know, you can book a combination ticket now for Disney and Universal, but you only get 1 day at Epic Universe, so you're there for 2 weeks and you only get 1 day. So I rang them up and said, is this ever going to change? Is it going to be 2 days maybe? You know, we're going for 2 weeks. What attraction tickets told me is that it's very, very unlikely that in 2025 we'll be seeing more than 1 day. However, in 2026, they're already now selling tickets that you can go anytime you want. So basically the answer is probably not going to get day tickets for UK guests this year. However, if you go in 2026, you can go any day you want as part of your ticket. I don't know if it's going to be a lot more expensive because it's like an extra theme park as part of your combination ticket, but that's what's happening. So hopefully that answers your question, Stephanie. If not, then I'm sure Dan will tell me all about it.
Hang on, a really quick, but what if to that?
Go on.
You're American, you want to go to that theme park. What do you do?
So at the moment you have to buy a 3-day ticket. So you have to get a 3-day combination 3-park ticket. So you'll get Universal Studios Islands Adventure Epic Universe 3-day ticket. Because Americans don't buy 2-week tickets, they don't sell them because they don't have holidays for that long. They'll have a long weekend or something. So I think they can either buy a 3-day ticket, and I don't know if they can buy one and add on Volcano Bay or not, presumably. But they'll only normally have a holiday potentially between sort of Friday to Monday or something like that. So at the moment, you can't just buy one ticket for Epic Universe. And I don't know if that might change maybe towards the end of it, but it's more likely based on what they're selling at the moment that it's going to happen in 2026. Unfortunately, because I would like to buy a day ticket, even if it cost me an extra couple £100, I probably would buy one. But I think the problem is a lot of people would do that, which would then mean that loads of people are going to the park, which is the whole point of restricting it in the first place. So I think the answer is, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to buy a day ticket when we go. Okay, so next question is from Katie Dunton, who says, do you think non-Merlin parks in the UK will be able to survive once Universal is up and running? I'll give that one to Brett.
That's a really good question. I mean, because obviously we talked about this earlier in the show, but we talked about it in conjunction with how it would affect Merlin parks. I mean, we're already seeing the downscaling of Drayton Manor. I mean, they've gone in a completely different area now into the whole kids area. Lightwater Valley is kind of seemingly on its knees. We've just seen a park close entirely in the UK, a smaller family park. So I would like to think no, and that they will do fine. But unfortunately, I do think we may see the drop off of a few of the smaller parks, you know, the kind of Pleasurewood Hills type theme parks that are family orientated. But then again, will Universal price itself out of the market in the UK? And will families continue to go to these smaller parks because they're quite literally 10 times cheaper?
Yeah, no, good. Thank you. Thanks for that question, Katie. Final question. We've just got one more question, so I'll give this to Dan and Sam. And kind of linked to the last question, actually, is from Andrew Davies. He says, how have the UK's theme parks fared this year? What do you think is the future of Merlin's UK offering? Start with Dan.
So from what I can gather, I think there's been a bit of a slowdown this year, and I think that's been nationwide. I think all parks haven't really had the footfall that they've had the previous couple of years. I think people coming back from COVID, they wanted to go to theme parks, they wanted to catch up, they wanted to do all the things that they've been missing out on. And then I think there were I think once people had experienced that, there's a little bit of a lull naturally, and I think on top of that, people were waiting for things to reopen. There were some there were some closures in certain parks, and I think Alton Towers reopened and had a really disappointing reopening, and I think that put some people off coming back whilst it was a bit of a mess. I don't know. It's felt like it's been a bit of a slow one this year, and I hope that's not something that's gonna stay that way for long. I would love to see it bounce back a little bit this year. Now that is, I keep forgetting we're in 2025 now. It's mental, time's flying by. But yeah, I hope maybe if Universal make their announcements, it'll put some life back into the idea of going to theme parks. It'll get people excited about the idea again. That's what I'd like to see. So fingers crossed.
Andrew, nice to hear from you. How are you? So the cost of living crisis, I think, has really affected theme parks in the UK this year because of not only things getting more expensive, but then I also think there's been a lot of ride availability issues across Merlin that we've seen. Not just Alton Towers, but I think across the board in general. So I think people with the cost of living paired with the ride availability are now second guessing whether and when they can go to theme parks and if it's going to be worth going to theme parks. So with that in mind, my personal prediction moving forward is that the focus is going to be on capacity, right? Any way they can fill capacity, whether that's through entertainment ventures such as Thorpe Park putting in the stage, or ride availability and new rides and investments coming like Alton Towers with their inverted spinner. Top spin, I think, is a great capacity option. But I think they're doing that as well because they had a bad year. But I think because of Universal is getting more and more likely, I think we're going to see some major investments come into play in 2028. I think that will be the next big year for investment because it's 2 years out of allegedly Universal being built. So I think there's going to be a lot of prep to make the parks as good as they can be for the guest experience. So in the interim, in the midterm, I think that will be looking at capacity and venues and things to leverage the crowds. But then longer, looking further down the line in the next 5 years, I think 2028 will be our key year for investment, which will be wonderful because they're going to be like, well, we've got 2 years. And essentially, they've got 5 years, 6 years to really turn things around. 5 years, if Universal is going to open in 2030. So 2028 will be a key year, I think, for major investments.
Thanks very much. And if you want to be featured on the End of Show Club, then just follow us on Instagram or Facebook. And often before we do a recording, we ask for questions. Just send us your questions and then you can feature on the End of Show Club. Welcome to the End of Show Club. Thank you for joining us in the End of Show Club. Do you know what? It's the End of Show Club. It's not just massive, Sam.
It's so big! I didn't expect him to be big!
It's so big. It's bigly. Right, okay. So let's end the show then. So thank you for joining us. Dan, do you want to remind everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, well, I'm mostly just on like Theme Park Loopy these days. I do still have a YouTube channel. I'm still doing stuff. I actually went for a trip in the plane the other day because I needed to do a few touch and goes in order to keep my ability to fly with passengers. So if you want to see what I am doing when I'm flying, search for, I don't know, on air Leeds Bradford, and you'll probably hunt down the video of me flying with my mum, who didn't know I was a pilot at the time.
Brilliant. And Brett, where are you? You're everywhere. Where do you want people to find you?
I get about. You can probably find all my kind of stuff across the board on Brett's Weird World on Instagram, even on TikTok. I did a few videos. One of them being how I thought my legs were going to get blown off by the fireworks in Epcot that fire right in front of your feet, which I did not know was happening, and I nearly fell over.
Fantastic. And Sam, last but not least, where can people find you?
You can find me over on Coaster Sam blog, because I have reinstated that Instagram channel now, and I posted some content just before the new year. And with my return back home this year, there's going to be lots more content coming out, and just fun graphics, videos, that kind of thing, as well as on Theme Park Loopy. So that's at Coaster Sam blog, but mainly I'm sticking around Theme Park Loopy.
Fantastic, as Sam would say. What's that, Sam?
Fantastic.
There we go. Yeah, so Theme Park Loopy, what I would ask is, we're still trying to get our rating up on Spotify. Thank you if you've been giving us ratings. It's been helping us get back up there. So if you haven't already left us a rating on Spotify, then please do so. If you're listening on another podcast platform, feel free to leave us a review or a rating, and also share. If you've got friends and family interested in theme parks and attractions, and people like us who talk about random things to do with theme parks and attractions, and we're such handsome and interesting people. Actually, when Steph's a co-host, I don't know if I can describe her as handsome. How would you describe Steph, Dan? What is the most appropriate way of...
Beautiful, stunning, amazing.
Beautiful and stunning. That's it. Beautiful, stunning, and handsome. That describes the Theme Park Loopy podcast fairly, I think. We're also on YouTube, so you can watch us on YouTube. We've got clips on there as well. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again real soon.